Well, I've gone really deep into this Crown Victoria project so far, and I've basically completed the disassembly on the white Crown Victoria here, and this is the one that I'm going to get on the road. And you don't have to take the car apart this far just to get the engine out, but what I discovered when I was preparing it to get the engine taken out was that the radiator cradle was bent backward on the bottom. So I've got that out over here, and that's what it looks like. There's the old rusted battery tray that would not come off. I don't really care because I don't need it, but hopefully you can tell just how bent down that bottom portion is. That's all supposed to be straight or parallel to this main piece right here, and it's bent down toward the ground right there, and that's why you've got this area kind of pushed upward, because this piece here was attached to the bumper, and this nylon fastener kind of retained it in here and pulled this metal forward. It gives you an idea of how strong these nylon fasteners are. Actually, they're very irritating to get off. Of all the parts on the car that are the most annoying to get off, it's these stupid nylon fasteners. You gotta get screwdrivers under here and gouge the paint and gouge the plastic and get these off, and then once you get them off you can't really reuse them. They don't really stay on too tight afterwards. They're kind of a one-shot deal, so they're pretty annoying. And then the radiator cradle on the bottom part is kind of bent upward a little bit, as well as pretty corroded. So if I'm gonna put the new engine in this thing, and as long as I have the components from the wrecked Crown Victoria, I might as well just go ahead and use as many good parts as I can. That thing is so damaged that the radiator was actually pretty difficult to get out. I didn't have a whole lot of room to work with it, and as you can see over here, the stash of parts that I got, they had to cut out part of the fan shroud on the driver's side and passenger side just to be able to drive the car. So that's just a bunch of nonsense. I'm going to go ahead and replace the fan shroud with one off of the brown Crown Victoria. But this does give you a really good picture of how these cars are actually made. The entire body is mounted on a metal frame with these rubber isolators. I'm not sure exactly how many there are, but the frame has these perches that these rubber isolators mount on, and the body just basically sits right on top. That's what they call the body-on-frame construction. Bumper is very heavy duty. It's a double-walled aluminum bumper on the shock absorber mounts, directly attached to the frame, so this bumper can actually move inward by that amount and push back out with no damage at all or very minor damage. Frame here is pretty substantial for a car, and the car is just not looking like much. Basically, to get that radiator, the radiator support out, you pretty much have to take off at least one fender, the hood of course, because the hood hinges are mounted to the fender, and then a whole bunch of wiring, and then basically lift it on out of there. The fender is mounted to the body here, 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 and here, and then several places up front where the radiator shroud is. This gives me a really good opportunity to see what kind of damage I've had in here, what kind of condition the car is in, and all those kinds of things, as well as get a better assessment on how I'm going to get the engine out of here. The engine basically is all disconnected and ready to come out. I just wanted to get going on the radiator support first, just make sure that I've got something I can work with before I go through all the trouble to drop a new motor in there. So it kind of This project is in the phase right now of the it looks worse or it gets worse before it gets better phase. There are a whole lot of fasteners that go to that car. Sitting over here in a pile, believe it or not, I know where they all go. There's only about maybe 2 or 3 different sizes of bolts and things that are on here. So it's not really as bad as it looks. The header assembly is all fiberglass and comes off as one piece, to include the grille and the headlights, and as well as the bumper. That's just all one piece. Just clips right on. So I've begun tearing down the Rex Crown Victoria, kind of in the same fashion, but I haven't really gotten quite as far yet. I was a little bit scared that because this was all pushed in, the radiator support would be damaged and I would have to basically just buy a new one. But that does not appear to be the case. It looks like all the damage to that fender basically stopped right here. So I don't really have to be quite as careful with this car as I do the other one. This fender is basically ruined anyway. Here you can see more clearly how the body of the car sits on these mounts, these rubber isolators on the frame perch. I've got this loose right here. It's about ready to come off. But I just wanted to stop and make a quick video. You can see just how good a shape this car is in, or actually was in compared to that one. The frame is just looking like brand spanking new. Same with the bumper mounts, everything. And what I have to do now is basically finish taking off the fender. You can see the stress it was under because of the accident. Once I removed the fasteners to here, you can't see, but there's 2 under here. There's one there. That one's where the header panel was bolted to. Once I removed those, the fender just popped right on back like that. So that shouldn't be too difficult to get off. And then I have to start working on the engine side, taking off the fan, the radiator shroud, and the radiator itself. And then this rad support can slide right on out of here once all the wiring is disconnected and everything else. And then what I'm going to do is go ahead and prepare the surface and go ahead and paint it white, and then just drop it in the white car if it ever stops raining, which I don't think it ever will this year. So it's kind of interesting. Here's the header panel on the brown Crown Victoria. Unfortunately, it's a little bit damaged. I was going to take that and have it painted and put it on the white Crown Victoria, but right where that fender mounted, it basically took a hit and cracked right here. Not terribly bad, but definitely not as in good a shape as the header panel off of the white car. But the headlights are in definitely better shape, and so is the grille. The bumper is not in good shape at all. It's got a big tear right here, so I'll have to basically throw that guy away. But the bumper on the white car is not in bad shape either. Or I might just go ahead and buy a new bumper. It's interesting, the 1995 Crown Victoria, they actually still used computer punch cards back in 1995. This punch card is still attached to the header panel, and what these cards were used for, they were used in the final assembly, and at various stages of the car's build, they would have different color punch cards to determine or indicate where in the assembly process the car was. And they had a guy at the end of the line that would, whose job was nothing more than taking all these punch cards. He'd rip them off the car, and he'd carry them up front to the computer room, and they would run these punch cards through the card reader, and that would update the vehicle scheduling system, so the computer would know exactly where in the process this particular VIN number was. Was it in body? Was it in paint? Was it in trim? Those cards would update it. And so they were used as recently as 1995. So I think I'm going to go ahead and keep that thing just for posterity's sake. But anyway, just wanted to make a quick video. It's kind of difficult to show the disassembly process because there's many parts that have to come off, but you can basically see in a nutshell what I've got to do. You know, remove these 2 bolts, those 2 bolts, and bolt right back in there, and then some bolts around the bottom to get this fender off. And then once the fender's taken off, I can go ahead and lift up this rad cradle and get that on out of here, and then I'll be able to paint it. And then once I basically get the body of the car in such a condition that basically it's roadworthy, I can go ahead and start thinking about prepping up this engine for removal and get it out of here. I've got a rag in the air cleaner just to prevent any critters or contamination from getting up into the throttle body of the good engine. And I'm just kind of taking my time, kind of making sure I have all the fasteners in one place, and so I basically make a mental note of where everything is so I can get everything put back together. I've got the parts to the white car on that side of the garage, and then the parts to the wrecked car on that side of the garage, and I'm just going to go ahead and flip them. And by the way, that's what the fender looks like on the white car. Not too bad to take off, just lots and lots and lots of fasteners and wiring harnesses and everything else. You just have to take your time. But if you're methodical, you'll be able to keep pressing on. And I'd like to keep pressing on today, but I'm just not going to be able to. It will just not stop raining. So that's why this project has dragged on and on and on, because I'm either extremely busy at work and don't have time during the week, and then by the time the weekend gets here, it rains constantly, so I'm pretty much stuck. But I did want to make a quick video of the progress on the car so I can let you guys know where it is. The next video will probably be of this car with the radiator shroud in and the fender put on and the front of it put together, and basically that'll be in the position where I can go ahead and take the engine out of there and actually do what I intended to do weeks ago, which is the actual motor swap. So stay tuned for that one.